Okay, all right. 7:04. I think we can get started. We've got a good number of people here in the room with us. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jen Bradovich. I'm our Director of Exhibitions and Programs at Print Center New York. And on the Zoom with me tonight is Robin Siddall, our Programs and Exhibitions Coordinator. Hi, Robin. Give us a wave.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Oh, hi, Winston. Thanks for joining us. The chat is open if folks want to say hello where they're zooming in from. It is great to have you all here with us tonight and to be hosting this info session for New Voices, which is our annual open call program at Print Center New York. If you are familiar with us at Print Center, you know that we rolled out New Voices about a year ago, last summer, for our pilot year. And we've spent the 2023 season working on the inaugural iteration of this program. So the selection of artists for this year was led by Carmen Ermo, assistant curator at the Brooklyn Museum, and she selected from almost 500 applicants from across the US, a cohort of 8 artists to be our kind of guinea pigs for our first year of this program. And the resulting exhibition, which you're seeing a little installation image of there in the background on the slide, is on view now at Print Center New York in Chelsea, if you know our space on 24th Street. You can also, you can come see it now through the end of August. You can also learn more about the artists and their practices on our website, printcenternewyork.org. You can also read the show's publication for free there. And if you're in town, come see us before August 25th to catch the show. Let's see. So tonight we're going to be talking about the 2024 cycle. We've just opened the application for the 2024 season, and that's open until September 8th. So we're here to give you an overview of the program, to go over how to apply, talk about what makes a strong application, and then we'll open it up. We'll answer some questions from all of you, let you make sure you get a chance to get some additional information from us, anything that you need to know more about. So a little bit of housekeeping just before we get started. The session is being recorded. So if you do have to leave early, we're going to be here for about an hour. We're going to go till about 7. So if you have to leave, check online in about a week and you should be able to see that on our YouTube. If you miss anything, there is also, there's auto-generated captions. So hit the little CC button at the bottom of your screen if you want to turn on captions. And Robin, what is the best way for folks to submit questions?
So you can submit questions through the Q&A feature in Zoom at the bottom of your screen. You can submit those questions anytime. If it's a quick clarification, we'll answer them as we go, but we'll hold the majority of the Q&A for the end of the presentation. You can also take a look at the Q&A and see what other people have asked at any time, and you can give it a little upvote if it's something that you want to make sure that we get to answering. Any other questions or comments that you want to make, you're welcome to use the webinar chat, and anything you want to make sure we see and answer, drop it in the Q&A.
Great, super, thanks. And thanks everybody. I love seeing where everyone is coming in from. I'm just scrolling through to see if I recognize any names. I think there's a couple I recognize, but a lot of new faces as well. So welcome everybody. And for anyone who isn't familiar with Print Center New York, just a little bit about us in case you've come upon this program and you're wondering, like, who's this organization? We're a nonprofit here in New York City. We explore the medium of print within broader artistic and cultural contexts. We're an exhibition space. We aim to support innovative scholarship and curatorial work in print, and also to support the practices of emerging and established artists in our field, and provide rich programming for the public that really engages various different ways of thinking about printmaking within cultural contexts and within histories. So this program, which we developed over about a year and a half and rolled out last year, was kind of part of a bigger set of organizational moves that we've been making. Last year, we opened our new space at the ground floor of 24th Street in Chelsea, right in the middle of Chelsea. And this has significantly increased our visibility, our accessibility of our space, and our ability to do new and exciting programming. So New Voices is one part of our organization's next chapter. And so we've been testing it all out for the last year with our pilot program artists, and we're excited to open up 24. So without any more delay, let's get on to it. Let's go over some of the program overview and eligibility. So I'm going to take us, this is me, right, Robin? I'm going to take us through this. Okay, great. Robin and I are going to switch off so that nobody's like monologuing all night, and we'll watch the Q&A in the chat as we go. So once again, New Voices, this is an open call exhibition and artist development program. So you can think of this as having two prongs. This provides a set of opportunities for a cohort of artists who are selected led by a curator who leads our selection process, an outside curator that we invite. And these artists are able to exhibit their work at Print Center New York, and then to also develop their practices through activities that we provide that are both public facing and which are kind of behind closed doors just for the artists in their cohort. So here are the key program elements. One is this group exhibition. This is scheduled for next summer. This is an annual program. There is a 3-day in-person convening of the artists. This is scheduled to coincide with the opening of the exhibition. So right now, the dates we have on the calendar for this are early June, June 5 through 7. We also work with the artists who are in the cohort to develop the series of public programs that the artists participate in. And we figure out, you know, maybe their talks, maybe their performances, maybe it's a hands-on workshop. We kind of like are flexible about what these things look like, depending on the artist's work and the themes of the season. And then there are also a series of artistic and professional development activities that kind of happen behind closed doors virtually throughout the summer and into the fall a little bit with the cohort. We'll tell you a little more about that. And then a key aspect of the program is that there's financial support for participation, and in the form of a stipend, which Robin will give you details on. And then there's also exhibition related and travel costs that we cover so that artists are not out of pocket for exhibition costs such as shipping, framing, etc. We'll go into more detail on those points, but covering those costs is a really important part of the program, and one reason that we limit participation to a small group so that we can really make these financial investments in the smaller group of artists. Next slide. Great. So here you're just seeing like a quick overview of some of the stuff that's been happening with this year's inaugural cohort for 2023. So you're seeing on the top right, you're seeing some installation images. That's Farah Muhammad's work on the top right corner, and then an image of Lois Harada's Penny Press. These are all installed in the gallery right now. You also see on the left, this is the publication for the first year of New Voices. The theme was transformation. So you see New Voices on transformation. This has an essay by our curator, Carmen, that kind of situates every artist's practice. It's beautiful images of the artwork, bios for each artist. And then on the bottom there, you see a little screenshot from a Zoom program that we actually had last week. So we have Lois, Julia, and Aaron there in a really interesting conversation that Carmen moderated. So one of the different types of public platforms that we provide as part of the exhibition for the artist cohort. Great, thank you. And then these images give you a little glimpse behind the scenes of our artist cohort gathering that we had in June. So a little bit of a mix here. What you're seeing is some of the activities the artists engaged in. So we had 4 artists from the city, 4 artists from outside the city. The artists who lived outside New York were brought in for 3 days, and we brought them to New York. We brought them to Print Center. We had a like a curator panel. You see that image in the bottom center where we're all sitting in like a circle. The curators talking about how they work with artists, how they do studio visits, how they maintain relationships with artists, how they develop exhibitions, the importance of maintaining those networks and kind of nurturing your contacts. We had a presentation, kind of like nicely emotional talk with a visiting artist who talked about his practice, key moments in his practice, how he's navigated his career as he's found success recently in the last couple of years, the challenges. We also brought in, and you see in the top middle there, a visiting critic who was speaking to Juana Estrada Hernandez here. This is the director of the studio program at Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts. And we brought in visiting critics for all of the artists who did kind of studio visits in the space. So each artist got to meet with 4 visiting critics to talk about their work in the exhibition before it was open to the public, kind of one-on-one. And then finally, we took them on some print field trips. You can see folks like really examining some prints here from the archives and even touching prints at Gemini, which was really, really fun. Let's see. So this is just kind of a sampling of some of the activities that we did with the cohort. And then they also got headshots, and they also got, I'm supposed to also mention that we provide installation images of the work. So this was like super fun 3 days. Oh, and then we do like dinner. We have like a, community meal, things like that, just for the cohort to get to know each other and spend time together. Robin?
I just noticed a question in the chat about who the visiting critics were. I was wondering if maybe you could just name a couple other types of people who we invited to do those walkthroughs.
Oh my gosh, off the top of my head, you've got me, Beth. Let's see. We invited Jacob Rhodes, who is an artist, curator, and founder of Field Projects, which is an artist-run space here in Chelsea. We invited John Paul from Endless Editions, Paul John, I apologize, from Endless Editions, who also now is head of community at New Ink. We had Alexandra from EFA Studio Program. We had Samantha Ripner from Columbia's Neiman Center for Print. We had a mix of like printy people and non-printy people, curators. We had the executive director of Q Art Foundation. So tried to get a mix of people who work in kind of small nonprofit studio spaces, curator types, artists, try to like mix it up a little bit. Yeah. Beth, I'd be happy to, when Robin's got the mic, I can take a deeper look at that list. I think I've got it somewhere. No problem. So, okay, let's keep going. So then after, the artists have met each other and had this chance to kind of get to know each other's work and kind of build some community amongst themselves during this 3-day event, that, as I mentioned, this professional artistic development kind of goes on behind the scenes. So during the summer, we kind of bring the artists together during 2 virtual meetings, which are focused on idea and resource exchange. As we are now just at this point in the current 2023 cycle with the cohort, this is kind of under development now. These may include things like skill building sessions, studio visits, or informal group crits, presentations from thinkers or professionals in the field. We want to be responsive to the needs of the group and kind of where they are in their individual careers. And so one thing that we're trying out for this group is also like a one-on-one sessions for each artist that will be highly individualized, as well as like bigger group session to talk about how to kind of map your practice and think about your goals moving forward and what you kind of, I think, need to continue navigating where you are in your career at this moment. And just once again, to remind everyone, these are virtual, you don't have to travel. And just one reminder over the top of all of this is that remember that New Voices is not a residency program. This is not a program where you are coming to New York and coming to studio space and making work that's then exhibited. I think there's been a little confusion in the past about whether this is more of a residency model. Not a residency. The work that you show in the exhibition to kick off the season in June should be finished work. And we hope, of course, that you're making work while you're in the program over the summer, but this is not a requirement. We don't expect you to make work. We don't provide space for you to make work. We really are here to just kind of provide a place and a platform for you to develop your practice with us, mostly virtually. Great. Let's see. Okay. And then, so as I mentioned, we've just opened our 2024 cycle. And here we have our guiding theme. The theme for 2023 was transformation, intentionally broad. The theme for 24 is also broad. So the theme here is ritual. And we have invited an independent curator, Olivia Shao, to work with us this year. Olivia has been doing projects in New York and abroad for I think over a decade, and does really kind of interesting interdisciplinary programming. Olivia was also one of the artists, or one of the visiting critics of one of the walkthroughs, and is how we kind of learned of her this year. She's a background in print, she's a background in works on paper, so she's really excited to think about how ritual and print can kind of come together in an interesting way. And she's a very different sensibility than Carmen. So if you are an artist who applied, you know, last year, or you're looking at the work from this year's show and thinking, my work doesn't look like it would fit with this should not stop you. We want a variety of work. And so this is why every year we are inviting new people to lead the selection process. So don't let any like formal concerns stop you. Just, you know, if your work fits the theme, go for it. Great.
All right, I can give you a break from chatting, Jen, and talk a little bit about the compensation and financial support aspect of the program. As Jen mentioned before, we want to offer support to the greatest extent possible that we can for the artists exhibiting in this program. So for your time and effort exhibiting, creating programming, participating in the cohort, each artist receives support in the form of an honorarium, which is a $2,500 unrestricted artist fee for participation. You don't need to send us budgets. You don't need to send us reports. We'll be in touch with you throughout the summer to see how you're doing and keep in touch with you, but we're not asking you to report back to us about that honorarium. Another component is the shipping and framing. So Print Center New York covers the cost of round trip shipping and framing for artwork on view. We're the ones asking to borrow it and to show it. We take on the expense associated with that. And the reasonable cost piece of that just means that if you maybe have an installation of 50 tiny prints that all need to be matted and framed, and it would cost $10,000 to do that, we might not choose to show that, but it's within Jen and my responsibility, working with Olivia, to reasonably decide what we can borrow, what we can show. It is not a cost that falls to the artist at any point. And alongside that, as Jen mentioned earlier, with the in-person gathering in New York, travel, lodging, and meals are something that we also cover. If you're coming from outside of the city, we'll pay for your flight. We'll get you a hotel so that you don't have to worry about that part. And we'll also give you a little meals and incidental stipend so that while you're running around all these activities that we're planning, you also have time to stop, get a coffee, get some lunch, not pass out by the end of the day. Now that is the overview of the programs. Now we'll turn to talking about eligibility, the application process, and what makes a strong application. So eligibility for this program is limited to artists who are based in the United States, and we specify can provide a tax identification number just due to our own financial bookkeeping, tax-related limits. We are looking for people who are engaging with printmaking in some form in their practice. So this could be that you are literally making prints in a traditional way with screen print, lithography, woodcut, something like that. But you could also be engaging through concept or materials, ideas related to print culture, dissemination of ideas, making multiples, something like that, even if you're doing it in tandem with another medium. And you don't need to be working just in printmaking. Maybe you're combining print with some other kind of medium. Print and sculpture, print and performance. I think that there's a lot of potential for these expansive ideas surrounding printmaking, particularly with Olivia Shao's theme of ritual. And we're excited to see how that manifests in the applications this year. And finally, this program is intended to support artists who are working without institutional support, such as gallery representation or full-time enrollment in a academic program related to your practice. So what that means is if you are, for example, represented by some major New York gallery, Gagosian. They're doing all of your logistics for you. They're providing a lot of that support. This maybe is not the right program for you. However, this is sort of a case-by-case basis. This definition of like a major commercial gallery is a really broad thing. So essentially there's a place in the application for you to tell us if you have gallery representation, and we can take a look at that and sort of work on a case-by-case basis if that seems like if this program seems like the right fit for you and where you are in your career. The other piece of this about an academic program, if you are currently enrolled in a BFA or MFA related to your practice, so printmaking, book arts, something like that, then this might not be the right program for you. We are looking to support artists who don't have the kind of institutional supports and structure that are offered in those kind of programs. So the restriction that we have in place is that you have been out of one of those programs for at least a year. So if you've just graduated, in the past couple of months, then we ask that you wait a year, apply next year, show us what you've been doing while working outside of those programs. And we also ask that you are not going to be enrolled in a program when this exhibition is on view, so that again, if you are going to actively be having those supports in another fashion, we're directing those resources to people who don't have that in the moment. So I see a couple questions are coming in about this. I believe I've answered the question about gallery representation. If I can further clarify that, just pop another question in and let me know. In terms of teaching, we are not disqualifying people who teach in an academic program. In fact, about 2/3 of the cohort this year do work in academia in some way, actually. This is not something that we're excluding, and instead are talking about people who are students and are getting a lot of active support from the programs that they are in. Anything that you think I've missed there, Jen, about the eligibility piece?
Sounds like a great overview to me. I'm sure we'll get more questions.
All righty, let me find my notes again and move on now to how to apply. So we will be accepting applications through a free online application on the platform Submittable, and it consists of samples of your work. So you can upload up to 10 images of existing work created within the last 4 years. So that would be since January 1, 2019. And as Jen mentioned, this is not a residency program. We're not asking you to make work for this show. So we want to see work that is in existence. You can include works in progress if they're things that are sort of well on their way, are going to be completed by end of this year, very early next year. January 2024 is the sort of deadline we're putting on that right now. And I've also just included a little screen cap here of the Submittable platform when you upload an image, to make sure that you also fill in this supplementary information, title, year, medium, just so that we know what we're looking at when we look at these images. The second part of this is a set of short answer questions. So these are responses to these 3 prompts submitted in 250 words writing or recorded verbal statements, if that is the better way for you to communicate. And I think I saw a question about this, so I'm going to find that quickly.
In the chat.
Question with the short answers to 3 questions. It is that each question is allotted 250 words. So each one of those you get 250 words. We are not asking you to try to answer all of this stuff in just 250 words. That would be so much information to pack in. The short answer questions are really an integral part of this application, alongside of the work samples. And so we give you plenty of room to dig into these questions and talk about how you are making your work and how your practice shows up for you, how you're making something like that. So the 3 questions we have here: how is printmaking incorporated in your work? Why is print both as a process and concept a part of your artistic practice? So we're Print Center New York. We want to hear about why print is important to you. Then we ask you to select one work from your application materials and to walk us through how it was made with attention to the materials, the processes, the research, conceptual drive involved in making it. So this is a way for us to really take one thing that we're looking at, and instead of letting it be a static thing, you can take us through start to finish what your process of making work looks like from all angles of it. So what is it you're making? How are you making it? What are you thinking about? Who are you working with? What resources are you consulting? Are you doing research related to it? Are you drawing inspiration from a very specific thing? Let us know about that. It really tells us a lot about how you are thinking and working as an artist. And finally, how does your practice engage with the guiding theme of ritual? Essentially, we want to hear about how you're responding to those questions that Olivia lays out in her guiding framework, and why this is the right show for you and your work, and how you see your own work fitting into that. And finally, the last piece that we ask for is a CV, just to give us some idea of who you are, what you've been up to. You can tell us about some exhibition history and other relevant activity like residencies or fellowships, either in the past or coming up. If you have some kind of residency or fellowship lined up in the next year, that does not disqualify you, since we are not a residency program. So you can go off, and we hope that you are pursuing lots of other opportunities at the same time. It doesn't have to just be us. I am going to hand it back over to Jen now to talk a little bit about what we see making a strong application.
Thanks, Robin. And Beth, I see your good question about the curators selecting, how the selection happens. I'm going to put a pin in that, because I think after I do this section, if I'm not mistaken, and from my notes here, we're going to look at the timeline. And I think maybe then Robin, who really facilitates the whole selections process with the curator, can kind of walk us through the steps. And I think, Beth, that will answer your question as we get there. So I'm going to put a little pin in that one, but I do see your question. So what makes a strong application? Okay, so if you are somebody who is frequently applying to kind of like open calls for exhibition, for print exhibitions, for works on paper exhibition, for juried exhibitions, you may be used to thinking about your works as being, like you're submitting a work for consideration in an exhibition. Instead, we would like you to think about this as an application where you're introducing yourself and your practice to our curator. So you aren't necessarily sending us, 3 objects that you hope you hope we pick one of them. You instead are trying to put together, as Robin mentioned, an application that really shows us what is your practice? What are the things you're thinking about? Where are you at your career right now? And represent that the best way that you can for us, so that we kind of recognize that you have something exciting that you're doing and that you're kind of ready for this next step, right? So think of this more as like an application, introducing yourself to the curator and to the program staff at Print Center New York, me and Robin. We received about 500 applications in the previous cycle. And in doing this, we learned a couple of things. And if we have specific questions, I know Robin can speak to a lot of this, because she's seen all of the applications from last year, whereas I have only seen, the kind of finalist selections. But one thing that's really important is clear and good images. So you don't need to have professional installation images of all your work, right? That is often cost prohibitive. And one of the things that we provide as a kind of fringe benefit of the program is installation images of your work that are like really nice and document the work. It's really important for artists to have that, right? So we realize you may not have like super nice, high res, professional, beautifully lit photographs, but make sure that they're in focus, make sure that they're clear, make sure that maybe if you have like a very big installation, make sure that you can show us a view of the whole thing. Make sure that you can show us maybe a detail so we can get a sense of like the texture, right? One other thing on this like image point is that I've learned from recent jurying experiences that flat, abstract, two-dimensional work reproduces a lot better digitally on a screen than some other practices do. And so there are some inherent there are some inherent challenges about looking at all of this work digitally. So if you have a practice that, like an installation, like I just mentioned, that you need to show a couple images to give us a sense of what the object is, make sure you take advantage of that, right? Because sometimes when we see images, it's hard to tell what we're looking at. So just make sure that you're really seeing, like, does this represent the object to someone who hasn't seen it before, right? Who's someone who isn't familiar with what the materiality is. Also make sure that you are sending in up to 10 images. Is that right, Robin? So make sure that your images here, that you have 10, that you're showing us a body of work. You should think about these 10 images as a way to give us a really cohesive view into your practice. So you want to demonstrate, even if you're showing me works that are, it doesn't have to be 10 images from a series, right? This can be 2 monotypes and a print-based installation, and then like maybe these etchings over here. They should feel connected, right? They should feel like you have a kind of coherent point of view. They should feel like they're kind of by the same person, right? The kind of corollary to this, what we wouldn't want to see is like, here's my woodcut, here's my screen print, here's my etching. I'm like trying all these different things and they feel kind of disconnected from each other, right? We want a real sense of your practice. And finally, and this is a really, I know Robin could talk all day about this, but writing with specificity. So the opportunities that we give you in the application to say something about your work are not just like exercises we've given you to torture you. They are actually really important because it's a high volume of work. And if you are of applicants, and if you are looking at this many images, right? Like if you have 10 images per person and there's 500 applicants, I don't know, do the math. How many like pictures is that? It's like a lot of pictures, right? So this is a chance for you to give us important context to your work. The biggest advice we can give you on this is to avoid general statements about your work. Really focus on how your work specifically investigates the concepts you're dealing with and makes meaning. So through your material choices or through the ideas you're thinking about, what makes them unique, what makes them specific to the way that you work. You know, we really all like love print, but like saying like that you love printmaking is probably not the best use of the 250 words, right? This is like your one shot to really like grab us. So take that writing seriously and, you know, get a proofread from someone who doesn't, you know your work as well as you do. Sometimes it can be hard to see your work from the outside, and having an outside perspective on that is always helpful. So get a trusted friend to maybe review your writing before you send it in, or your video, your statement, however you're sending it in. Let's see. So then those are tips to give you kind of to stand out a little bit in that mix. And what we're really looking for here is that artistic point of view that's really clear, that feels cohesive, feels like you have a motivation for making the work. There's a question you're trying to answer. There's something you're reaching toward. It's thought-provoking. It isn't just one note, right? It's open. It has many points of entry and it generates further thinking and further discussion, right? It also is connected clearly to the theme, shows that you understand the guiding theme and questions and inquiries that Olivia is setting out, and you can kind of describe how this has something to do with your work. So how is ritual important to your practice? And then finally, we want to see that print is central to your practice. You need to be able to clearly, it's okay if you're not like, if you're not, you don't call yourself a printmaker. You can work in multiple modes. You can work in an interdisciplinary way. Many of the artists in our current show do, but print should be important to the practice. And you should be able to articulate why. There must be a reason that print is important to you. And that's what we're here for. That's what we care about. So tell us why print.
Great. I'm just going to give a quick overview of how the selection process works and some key dates. And then I see we have some questions coming in already with some more specifics about this application process. If you have more questions coming up, feel free to drop those in now, and that's what we'll get to right after this. So the general selection timeline, now August and September, the application is open for submissions. Again, that key date, 11:59 p.m. September 8th is when applications will close. Then September and October, Olivia will review those applications and we'll work on coming towards a group of approximately 40 finalists probably. So this is a staged kind of process. We have the big group of, last year was around 500 people. Then we move on to a selection of finalists that we spend more time looking at their work. So if for any reason you are not eligible, we will let you know by the end of September, let you off the hook, say, so sorry, but this is probably not the right fit for you. If you are, if your application is eligible, don't expect to hear anything. If you don't hear anything right away, that's okay. Just means that you're eligible and we're taking some time to look at your application. Then that group of approximately 40 finalists, we will be reaching out to the applicants by mid-November and letting you know if you are a finalist or not. Then after we have selected that pool of finalists, November and December, we will continue to review materials. We might reach out and ask you, hey, could you tell us a little bit more about this project? Could you send us some more images? Maybe we want to see a little more of like other things that you've been working on because we're intrigued by the work that you've shown us so far. And then finally, bridging over into the beginning of next year, the curator, in collaboration with Jen and I, will select the 6 to 8 artists who are invited to the cohort. And by mid-February of next year, the finalists will be notified of their status. We'll extend those invitations to the cohort members. So it's kind of a long process, but the intention here is that we're really slowing down, taking the time to look at all of your materials, read all of that writing, and just really get a good sense of who you are, what you're making, and how we can best represent it. So I think we will now move over to Q&A, and we have a few here already, which I can start off with about the application. And if you have other questions, drop them in the Q&A and we will see how many we can answer in the next 20 minutes. So we have a question from Beth. Should the works we submit be available for the exhibition? I would say mostly yes. Maybe there's something that is part of a larger body of work that gives context for the work that you're making, but that particular impression of work maybe is gone, sold, someone else has it now. But I would say on the whole, we want the work to be available. Do you feel that that's accurate, Jen?
Yeah, I think we generally wouldn't want you to apply with a bunch of work that we would get excited about and then for some reason not be able to show. Yeah. However, it's possible that you might apply with 10 images and in the course of, looking through your work and doing a virtual studio visit and talking to you, that we find you actually have something that you didn't send us that we really like. And, we feel like that's actually like really compelling and some shifts can happen. So you're not locked into the images you apply with, I would say, but in general, it would be better to make sure that things are kind of generally available. Now, of course, there is, as Robin mentioned, a long timeline between when you're applying now and when the work would come to us in probably May. So, things happen and that's just exhibition making. That's the curatorial process. But if you have something that you feel is like really, really, really compelling, you need us to see, even though you couldn't show it, still include it, like toss it in, just like maybe make it clear somewhere when if we're talking to you that it's not available. So we're not surprised later. That would be better. Hope that helps, Beth.
Then we have 2 different questions about video files in the application. Yes, you can submit video files as part of those work samples. I don't have a file size limit specifically off the top of my head, but I would say, probably just a couple of minutes if you're just trying to show a detail of something that's better seen in motion. Maybe that's just like a short, 20-30 second clip. If it's something that is maybe a video project that involves printmaking and it's an hour long, we probably won't have the time to watch the whole thing, but you could give us an excerpt of a couple of minutes for that. I hope that answers the question. If not, feel free to send a follow-up. If we want to show a wide angle view of a piece and also a detail shot is picture-in-picture in acceptable format, I would say that it would probably be more useful to keep those images separate so that we can look at them each on their own and give us the overall view of the work. And then if there's a specific thing, you can give us that detail and make sure to note in the supplementary information with the medium title, all of that, just let us know that's a detail of the same work that you've already submitted an image of.
Yeah, remember, we don't know your work. So if, you're submitting multiple images of a single thing to kind of give us the best view of it, make it really clear in that image script, what we're looking at. Sometimes it's really hard to tell, like on the other side of this, what we're looking at. And hi, Emmett, I recognize your name. I think maybe you applied in the past, or maybe you're a new Prince artist or something, but your name looks familiar. Good to see you here. Thanks for your question. I think we answered video file, or maybe two people asked the video file question. I think we're good on that one. Let's see. Question from Sarita. For installation documentation, should each image show one aspect of the installation, or composite slides? Okay. Oh, similar to Emmett's question. Robin, same answer? Better to show.
Same answer. I don't know. It's sort of a hard thing to answer in the abstract. I would say, if there's one installation and it's going to take up, 6 images to try to show it, and then you only have a little bit of space left, that might not be the best use of your space there. Again, it's always possible that maybe you show us a wide angle, you give us one detail, and then maybe if it's something that's really interesting, we'll have the chance to follow up with you and ask you for more images of it later on if it's something that the curator is interested in bringing in. So you don't have to give us everything in this application. This is your introduction, and you should use those 10 images wisely. Let's see. There have been a couple questions I've seen come in about the age of the work. So we're still looking to show some work that is somewhat recent. The limit that we've set is in the past 4 years. I see that there's a question from Anne Marie about can elements of older works older than 4 years be submitted for example, collage elements in a new work? Absolutely. There's no problem with that. And I think that probably is an important part of your practice, and you can use that second question to tell us about that and how you are going back and working with and reworking materials. Let's see, what else can we answer here? Oh, thank you for cleaning up the Q&A, Jen.
No problem. And someone had a question about like sending a private question. You can always, we'll drop this in the chat and it's going to be on another slide here, but you can always email your questions to programs@printcenternewyork.org. Robin is on the other side of that inbox, and that is the dedicated New Voices address. And so any questions you have, or if you have a really specific question that you don't want to answer here because it's like really, really detailed, ask Robin, and she provides excellent application support. So you can always reach her there as well.
And another reminder that the recording of this whole Zoom will be posted on our YouTube channel in about a week. And if you go back to our website where you found the link to register for this, we'll have the link for it there. So if you go to our application support page, you'll be able to find this video, watch it back, hear what we were saying all over again.
Yeah, I think that answers Anonymous's question about getting a video of this Zoom. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you should be able to find that kind of like everywhere on our stuff within about a week.
Yep. Emmett, with a note about a 5-minute video. I think a 5-minute video is fine. If you'd like to distill it down to some specific part of it that you want to make sure that we see, I think that's sort of the thing to keep in mind is, if there's something that you want to make sure at like the 4-minute, 15-second mark that you want to make sure we see, maybe send us like a clip of just that part. And otherwise, I would say keep videos 5 minutes and under, just for file management, ease of the process.
File management and to remember, like, in terms of that volume, like, we are slowing the process down for the selections committee, or committee, us, the juror. But like, on that first pass, we're probably not watching like all 5 minutes of a video, right? You have a pretty quick period of time to capture the attention. So if there is like something that's really key, you can give us a little taste, right? And then like, once you maybe make it to that, that's the purpose of this second round that Robin mentions, where you're a finalist and we're kind of going like, okay, hey, we were really interested in this video. You sent us this 30-second clip. Is this part of a longer project? Can you send the whole video? We'd like to think about the whole thing. We'd like to ask you some questions, because we're trying to now like kind of round out our understanding. So I would err on the side of being a little shorter there, just for our like ease of sorting through everything.
I see a question here. If we already submitted the application, can it be edited at all? If you are watching this, you're learning, you're thinking, I wish I had written my answers to those questions a little bit differently. That's okay. Just shoot me an email, programs@princecenternewyork.org, and I can help you out with that.
Good. Let's see. I think we have some others in the chat. Maybe some things coming up in the chat.
Yeah.
Got about another 10 minutes with us here, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. So any more questions, please send them in.
Wondering
Yeah.
do you ever waive the being out of a full-time institution for at least 1 year point? I guess it's hard to answer with only 1 year of examples to draw from. That was not the case this year. We really want to be to see that you are making work when you are not just responding to maybe like a deadline for a project, and that to have a sense of how you're working as an artist outside of that very rigid structured program. You know, there's always fringe cases for anything in the world, but our general guideline here is at least 1 year out of that kind of program.
Yeah, this is a tough one. And, you know, like, this is only the second time, this is only the second cycle. You know, in 5 years, this program could change a lot. So never say never, but this is something that right now we're kind of standing by. We really want to see that you are, you know, that you've got this kind of like, I guess for lack of a better word, like grit to like drive to make the work kind of outside of the institutional support of like a program. I hope that helps. Let's see. Beth, I think we answered your question about like, does the curator do this on their own, or is this a broader committee? I think that we answered that one sufficiently.
Largely the curator, Jen and I help out, but it's a curator driven process by the single curator.
We kind of lend like printy expertise. We, you know, my job is always to make sure like, is the show, you know, every curator wants like, I think Carmen had, how many artists did Carmen have? And I made her get it down to, she was supposed to pick 6 and she couldn't. So we did 8. You know, I have to break people's hearts and like make sure the show fits and get people to narrow things down sometimes. But it's really, you know, we may give some feedback on, you know, if we think certain people are kind of at the right point in their career, or maybe help break a tie or something like that. But it's really curator driven.
Question from Susan: do online galleries fall into the category of gallery representation? Very broad question. Don't know what your specific situation is, but that is why we have in the application, if you have some kind of gallery affiliation, you can just give us a who that is, give us a link to their website. We can sort of check that out on a case-by-case basis, but that does not automatically disqualify you.
Susan, if they're not, you know, like handling all of your administration and like coordinating all your shipping for you and giving you financial support, it's probably fine. We're really trying to identify people here who are not yet having major gallery support. So an online gallery probably doesn't fit that bill, and it's probably fine, but you should just apply and put it in and we'll make that call. Beth, Beth again, we love you, Beth. Just wanted to confirm if you are using printmaking methods that are not intended for addition to multiple work, that this will qualify as print. Absolutely. An addition is not a requirement. A multiple is not a requirement.
There's plenty of unique work in the show up right now.
Absolutely. I highly, highly recommend Jennifer Roberts' lectures, Mellon Lectures on Contemporary Art from 2021, about a 6-part series on print, where she talks about the physical processes of printmaking and kind of extrapolates kind of philosophical or conceptual concerns from those things. And these are really important to my thinking about print, and you know, I get this question about what counts a lot, and yes, an addition is not always a requirement. And if you looked at are you familiar with our exhibition for our first show in our new space, Visual Record, The Materiality of Sound and Print, was much more focused on conceptual exercises in print processes, such as pressure, perforation. Additioning was not a requirement at all. So, you know, think about print expansively.
Jen, you're gonna have to send everyone an email with those.
I'm gonna bounce the next question to you so that I can get a link to Jennifer's. I sent it to everybody, so I'm gonna pull it up right now. I'll drop it in the chat for folks.
While Jen looks for that, I see there's someone out in the audience with a hand raised. If that is not intentional, don't worry about it. If there's a question you want to make sure we answer, please just pop it over in the Q&A so that Jen and I can see it. If you have any other final questions, drop those in there now. In the meantime, I'm going to just give some information about other ways that you can get support in the application process before we wrap things up. One thing is to read our FAQ, which you can find on our website. Lots of questions are already answered there about artist eligibility, artwork eligibility, features of the program, that kind of stuff. If you have a really specific question, as you are putting your application together towards the deadline, I'll be hosting virtual office hours on Thursday, August 31st from 4 to 6 p.m. You don't need to register for that. It'll just be a Zoom meeting room. You can drop in, have a little chat with me about whatever your issue might be, and I can help you out there. You can find the link for that on the application support page on our website. And finally, if you just have a quick question, you don't want to wait for the office hours, you can't find the information in our program overview or our FAQ, you can send me an email at programs@printcenternewyork.org, put New Voices additional support in the subject line to make sure that I see it and get right back to you. And I am happy to answer all kinds of questions over email. And before we wrap up, I see one more question came in. If work is still in the studio and won't be finished by the application deadline, work in progress for a large installation, is that okay to send for images? Yes, you can totally send work in progress images. The only limitation that we put on that is that it's something that will be finished well before we'll be collecting work and having it sent shipped to us if it were to be on view. So we would say something that is in progress has to be done by maybe January 2024. We want to make sure that there's plenty of time for you to resolve that work, get it figured out. Sometimes stuff takes longer than you think it will. And we want to make sure that we aren't pushing you to try to get something done for the night before that it's due.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Robin. I'm going to give folks just like one more minute in case there's like a pressing question that they just like have to get out and they've been, anxiously asking whether they should ask it. The answer is yes, please do ask it always, every time. So Robin, you worked a lot on this program when we were developing it together. We've been working on this for a long time now, and you worked really closely with Carmen on the 2023 iteration and are gearing up for 24. And so I guess my question to you is now just to put you on the spot, what did you see in looking through all of these applications that you were kind of excited about in the first year that you're excited and that makes you excited for the second year?
Well, you took the words out of my mouth, which was excited. I saw lots of really interesting work. And I think something that is good to keep in mind is that As we've said a couple times now, this is a pretty competitive program. We want to really be able to offer some focused resources to just a handful of people, and lots of people are applying. So just because you aren't selected for this program, it doesn't mean that your work is bad or that you shouldn't keep doing this or this is the end of your printmaking career. It is a small pool for a lot of people who want to be in it. And I think that it's always inspiring to see what people are doing out in the world rather than being sort of in this little insular space of me and Jen talking about what exhibition we're putting on next. And there are lots of artists that I started, following on Instagram after seeing their applications. So even if it's not getting into the gallery space, it's still, putting yourself out there is always a good and exciting thing to do.
Yeah, I think, and I see some people are like just getting the last cues in. Thanks. We'll jump to those in a second. But Robin, to your, I think, really important point, and like that heartbreaking process of telling all of the folks who made it into the finalist round last year, like, you didn't make the final cut, and like, it is so, I have to just tell everybody out there who's like making the 48 of you who are still on the call with us, like it so often does not necessarily have to do with the strength of your work. It really, like, a lot of the times comes down to like, does this resonate with the curator? And again, that's why we rotate the person who is making the selection, so that we can kind of keep like that perspective like fresh and rotating, because it shouldn't always be the same, we feel. So to try to like diffuse the number of people who are resonating with these curators, we invite new people every time. And so, definitely apply if you applied last year and, your work feels like it fits for this year as well. I know there were definitely people in last year's cycle who felt like they would fit in this year's. So, if you're watching and you're thinking that Ritual makes sense for your work, like, definitely send it in again. You never know.
And also there's some people who, are on like a great trajectory already. And like,
absolutely.
I think, hands off, you are already rocking and rolling it. And this program, we're just shooting for a different target of someone who needs a little more support right now. So it might not even be that you're not there yet. It might be you've already blown past the resources that we can offer right now.
Yeah, we really just like, it's a new program and we're still learning how to develop artist programming like this. And we just like may not be able to actually give you what you need. And so making sure that we find artists who we can actually deliver resources for is like something that we, to Beth's question, like, how do you make that selection? This is maybe something we give some feedback on in making the final selection, so that we know we can like do something meaningful for these artists. Let's quickly, thank you so much, Pilar, for your, I'm glad it helped. Thank you. Anne Marie, a diptych, absolutely, throw it in. Why not? No problem with a diptych. And size limit, no, none. Please send them. No size limit.
Our walls are 12 and a half feet tall.
Yeah, just like, apply with your work that shows your work off. And if we like it, we'll figure out a way. And if it can't be shown in our space, then like, we'll deal with that when that bridge comes to, when we cross that bridge, when we come to it. So no problem. Michael Menchaca is on the call, who is rising star. And what a joy for you to be in the room with us. Thanks for being here. Will you connect with artists with Zwirner and Pace? We did have people from Zwirner and Pace come through for the 3-day event. And part of what we are trying to do through bringing people in for that 3-day event from the outside and bringing artists to New York is to make sure that they can kind of make those connections where they don't already exist. And sometimes that leads to something fruitful right away. And sometimes it leads to, as you know, something like down the line somewhere. Sometimes it's like someone from Pace might just know someone who's looking to publish and they're a perfect fit for you. And other times it's much more, what that can look like and how that can be generative for your practice can look really different. So making some of those connections is a priority of the program and something that we try to do during the 3 days. And do we prefer work that has been exhibited before, or a mix, or not exhibited? I don't think I have a preference. I just prefer like work that is exciting and you've got a point of view and we want to help. And maybe you've shown a lot in, Arizona, but you've never shown substantially in New York. And part of our, New York is a center, for better or worse, of the art world. And part of that responsibility of being in New York is that it's incumbent on us to bring folks into that center. So if you show a lot regionally, but not here, show us your prints. We want to see it. We want to show it here. Great. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are out of time. This was really fun, as usual. Thank you for bringing us these great questions and really engaging with the process. I hope that this sheds some light on things that maybe you needed some more information about. But also, as I mentioned, it's a new program. So, we have been learning a lot alongside the inaugural cohort, and we are absolutely continuing to learn how we can kind of invest our resources and leverage our platform to support artists who are, we say emerging, but that doesn't mean young. It doesn't mean fresh out of school. It doesn't have anything to do with age. It's a constant state of being, right? And we continue to kind of think about ways to develop those artists and work with those artists. So, that work is never really done, and the program will not stay static for those reasons. And so Robin and I thank you for all the feedback and for the questions. Once again, the current show is on view until August 25th. So if you're in town, please do come see it. We also have a hands-on monotype workshop led by 2 of the artists on August 19th that we're looking forward to. And this fall, we're opening a big historical printmaking show called A Model Workshop, Margaret Lowengrund and the Contemporaries. Very different than New Voices, but it's opening in September, and we hope to see you there. As always, more info on our website, printcenternewyork.org, via our email newsletter, and on Instagram at printcenternewyork. When the webinar ends, you're going to get a little survey pop up in your browser, right, Robin? We got a survey on this one? Great. Thank you for sharing feedback there, especially for New Voices programming. It really helps us know who the audience is, and especially for this, where it's prospective applicants. It helps us understand kind of who's interested in the program and how we can serve you better. Thank you again, Robin, for being here. Thank you for your very thoughtful work caring for this program, and everyone else for your interest in New Voices. We are excited to see what comes out of it. So have a great night, everybody. Keep sending your questions in, apply, and we'll see you soon.
Have a good night.
Bye.